Nobody wants to admit this, but we all have childhood experiences that broke us. Sometimes those moments are small and easy to overlook, but they leave marks on how we feel about ourselves and the world. If you grew up with a narcissistic parent, those moments might have been even harder, full of confusion, pain, and feeling unseen. Today, we'll explore the 5 childhood moments that broke you if you were raised by a narcissist. Are you ready for number 1? You were the parent, not the child. When did you stop being a kid? Maybe it was the day you had to calm your mother down after a meltdown, or when your father told you things no child should ever hear, expecting you to be his therapist. If you were raised by a narcissist, chances are you had to grow up way too fast. You weren't just a kid. You were the peacekeeper, the fixer, the emotional sponge. This role reversal is called parentification, and psychologist Dr. Lindsay Gibson, author of Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, explains that children in these roles often feel invisible because their emotional needs were sidelined in favor of the parents. And now, even though you've grown up, that pressure hasn't really gone away. It's just changed shape. You might be the one who always keeps the peace in your relationships, avoids confrontation at all costs, or puts others' needs far above your own. Maybe you feel guilty for saying no, or anxious when someone's upset, even if it has nothing to do with you. That's the hidden aftermath of being cast as the emotional caretaker in your family. As psychologist Dr. Nicole LePera writes in her book, How to Do the Work, when children are forced into roles of caretaking, they learn to disconnect from their own needs in order to survive. So even now, you may find it difficult to know what you truly want because you were wired to focus on everyone else's emotions instead of your own. But here's the truth. You were never supposed to carry their pain. That wasn't your job. It never was. Let's talk about number 2. Your success was either ignored or claimed. If you were raised by a narcissist, your moments of success probably never felt like your own. Maybe you brought home an award, got praise from a teacher, or did something that should have made you feel proud. But instead, your parents brushed it off, changed the subject, or claimed, "Well, of course you did. You get that from me." Your achievements were either ignored completely, or your parents found a way to turn the spotlight back on themselves. This constant invalidation can quietly teach you that your achievements only matter if someone else approves, or worse, if someone else claims credit. According to clinical psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula, narcissistic parents often see their children as extensions of themselves, not as separate people, which means your wins were never really about you. That can leave you feeling empty, like no matter what you do, it's never quite good enough. Over time, this pattern chips away at your self-worth. You might find it hard to celebrate your successes or even recognize them. You downplay your accomplishments, feel like a fraud, or wait for someone else to say, "Good job," before you can feel proud. Or maybe you push yourself constantly, chasing bigger goals, because deep down, you're still hoping someone will finally notice. In her book, The Emotionally Absent Mother, psychotherapist Jasmine Lee Corey explains, when a child's accomplishments aren't mirrored back with delight and pride, they can feel invisible in the world. That invisible feeling may follow you into adulthood, making you crave validation, but fear attention. The truth is, your success does matter. You don't need to shrink yourself or hand it over to someone else to make it acceptable. You earned it. You always did. Let's move on to number 3. They compared you to others constantly. Instead of celebrating your strengths, your parents constantly compared you to others, as if you were always falling short. Maybe they always pointed out how your sibling was smarter, your cousin was more polite, or the neighbor's kid was more successful. If you were raised by a narcissist, this likely wasn't about helping you grow. It was about control. As Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, explains, narcissistic parents often use comparisons to keep their children chasing approval, because it keeps the power dynamic tilted in their favor. Over time, you may have started measuring your worth by how well you stacked up against someone else, which left you with this nagging feeling that you were never quite enough. That kind of conditioning runs deep. You might now find yourself stuck in a loop of self-doubt, always striving, always criticizing yourself, always scanning the room to see who's doing better. Maybe compliments make you uncomfortable because you don't believe them. Or maybe you constantly overachieve, not because you enjoy it, but because you're terrified of being seen as less than. In his book, Healing the Shame That Binds You, educator John Bradshaw writes, "Toxic shame is the feeling that we are flawed and unworthy, and comparison is one of its sharpest tools. But here's the truth. You were never meant to be anyone else. You were supposed to be loved as you, not for how you were compared to someone else. Your worth isn't a competition, and you don't need to earn your right to exist. You're already enough, exactly as you are." You shouldn't miss number 4, being publicly shamed or humiliated. Maybe it was that time they joked about your weight in front of relatives, or told your secrets to their friends, like it was entertainment. Maybe they mocked your tears, or imitated your voice to get a laugh. If you were raised by a narcissist, these weren't isolated incidents. They were patterns. Instead of feeling safe, you were exposed. Instead of being defended, you were the punchline. Psychologist Dr. Beverly Engel, in her book, The Emotionally Abusive Relationship, explains that narcissistic parents often use shame as a way to control and diminish their children, saying, "Shaming is a form of emotional abuse that can make a child feel flawed at their core. And once that shame takes root, it doesn't just disappear when you grow up. Now, even in adulthood, that same fear can follow you. You may feel uneasy in social settings, worrying that others are judging you or about to laugh at your expense. You might avoid speaking up or sharing personal things, because deep down, you expect ridicule instead of understanding. This is what shame does. It tells you to hide, to shrink, or to stay small. But here's the truth. What happened to you was not okay. You didn't deserve to be humiliated just for being yourself. It's not too late to reclaim your voice and your dignity. You are allowed to take up space without apology. And you never, ever deserved to be anyone's joke. Finally, we're down to number 5. You were the scapegoat. Licensed clinical psychologist Dr. Sherry Campbell, author of But It's Your Family, explains that narcissistic parents often pick one child to carry the weight of their own flaws and pain, saying, "Scapegoating is a defense mechanism used by narcissists to avoid facing their own imperfections." Maybe it started small, like getting blamed for a broken plate or a sibling's tantrum. But over time, it became a pattern. If something went wrong, you were the one punished. If your parents had a bad day, somehow you were the reason. You became the outlet for their frustration, the emotional dumping ground. And when that happens over and over, it can convince you that something must be wrong with you. Even now, you might carry that false guilt deep in your bones. You feel responsible for things that aren't yours to fix. Other people's moods, their mistakes, or their bad decisions. You might apologize too much, second-guess yourself constantly, or feel uncomfortable when things are going too well, as if you're waiting for the blame to land again. As Pete Walker writes in his book, Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving, scapegoated children often grow up with an inner critic so harsh it mimics the parent's voice. But here's the truth. You were never the problem. You were simply the most convenient target. Their pain was real, but blaming you was wrong. And now, you get to stop carrying shame that was never yours to begin with. Healing starts the moment you say, "That blame doesn't belong to me anymore." You didn't deserve to be hurt or made to feel invisible in your own childhood. Recognizing these moments is the first step toward healing and finding your true self again. Remember, your past doesn't define you. You have the power to rewrite your story starting right now.